First and Now is your official BC Lions podcast. Matt Baker, Nick Kowalski back. Well, it seems like only yesterday we were doing an episode with Joey Alfieri, excuse me. Got to get that right. There's one for the fine jar. But Nick, how are you? We're good to be here recording the morning after an impressive win over the Montreal Alouettes. Everything is right in the world again. Back in the win column. 4-1 at the bye.
Yeah, I think everybody here is back in good spirits. Feels good getting a win again. You know, that blip in the radar last week, right? You could say, steal a page from the Prairie Markets books, but yeah, it feels good, especially now with the bye week too, right? Like it's got to feel good for the guys. It's much earned now after 5 weeks of, you know, you're preparing, you're practicing, you're meeting, you're working out every single day, and some well-earned time off. 4-1. Going to Toronto, Calgary, and Winnipeg, you really can't complain, right?
Not at all. I mean, undefeated in the division. The only loss coming to Toronto, arguably the best team in this league for what that's worth in the second week of July. If you told this team at the start of the year or when the schedule came out, they would be at 4-1, undefeated in the West, including a very impressive victory in Winnipeg, we would have said, hand us the paperwork. Where do we sign? A lot of football left to be played. A lot of people are going to make it about us and the Blue Bombers. Fair enough, but Saskatchewan right there at 3-1 with an opportunity to get to 4-1. They host Calgary this week. Lions again on that bye week. Yeah, the wins in June and July are just as valuable as the ones in September and October. And this team has built up some currency in the bank here 5 games in.
Yeah, and to add to that preseason contract you're referencing, if you were to add to the fact that Matthew Betts would have 9 sacks, Alex Hollins would be leading the league in interceptions. Sean Shivers would emerge as this running back in week 5, and then you got Vernon Adams, the top pretty much any statistic you can find passing wise in the CFL. Like you would say, yeah, I'm signing this right now, because there's a lot of things to like about this team right now. And it's a lot of guys contributing. Like we can get into like Jalen Edwards Cooper yesterday, who had the game of his life. I'm sure it's good to see pretty much all 44 guys that are dressing, making contributions.
You hit on a few key topics there. Let's stay with those a little rapid fire here. We're going to hear from Bobby Dubeau, soon to be an official Guinness Book of Records holder, officially 10 stadiums in 17 days, 9 and 15. He did Winnipeg twice, but looking forward to catching up with Bobby. But let's, I guess, start with VA, because, again, rightly or wrongly, the 6 interceptions was a talking point, was a little bit of a, I don't want to call it a situation, but, you could tell it was getting to him. Some of the media scrutiny, and he handled it all like a pro. But after that near disaster to start, interception return called off by an illegal contact second play of the game. And I know some people may have said it was a ticky-tack call, but you give that back judge just a little bit of reason with a bit of a tug, that's going to get called most of the time. We've had those go against us. And I know some naysayers want to put a little asterisk on this, but bottom line is that was a penalty, and the offense responded well. VA officially 21 of 26 for 291 yards. He's going to get credit for another completion, toss to Alexander Hollins. The one touchdown to Javon Catoy, which served as a real backbreaker in the third quarter. And that touchdown to Catoy came right after a brilliant throw, great route, great throw to Keon Hatcher. So VA is okay, as they say.
100%. And even going back to that first possession or first drive of the game for the Lions, the mental aspect, right? Like there was a lot of pressure on Vernon going to this game, and then you do throw an interception, albeit negated by penalty. But the mental aspect for Vernon to bounce back and lead the team down the field for a touchdown drive, and he did it with his legs too, right? Had that 22-yard rush on that drive. And then, finding there was some that's another talking point I think we can make about Vernon and his play this season, is that some of the best throws in the CFL period, I would say majority of the best throws, if you're going to rank them, on a subjective basis. But I would say Vernon's right up there on several of them. I think there was the one to Whitehead in Winnipeg, the one to Katoy yesterday. That's right in the bucket. There's two Alouettes right there. And if
Yeah.
you just miss that throw, it's an incompletion, maybe an interception. And Vernon has the courage to throw that perfectly on the run too, and onto his non-throwing side too. So that was just a really impressive throw. The touchdown to Rhymes last week. So I know we weren't buying any of the stock that Vernon can't get the job done, and he proved it again yesterday that he can.
Yep, and good for him. I mean, you could just sense it in his post-game media, just how relaxed and relieved he was that they got the win. First off, I mean, he's the best example of a guy. If his stats aren't great, but the team still wins, he's a happy camper. So, VA, yeah, he'll be just fine, and he's going to take some time in Tacoma. You'd think this bye week. Shaun Shivers, it's funny. It was kind of a daily story, a daily question in training camp, for us included. We have all these running backs here, 3-4 guys with NFL experience, but now all of a sudden the question was, who's going to emerge? Taquan Mizell, we're not writing him off at all, though, okay? But now, due to injury, Shaun Shivers, a kid brought in less than 2 weeks prior, no pro experience to think of other than a mini camp stint in Seattle, and 136 scrimmage yards. He was actually the club's leading receiver on Sunday with 73 yards. Of course, that was a reception that he took almost for his second touchdown of the game. Unfortunately, lost the fumble, and he had some fun with it after in his post-game comments about his mom's not going to be too happy. Heck of a kid, happy-go-lucky guy. So if the Lions do run into some more trouble, injuries, what have you, maybe Shaun Shivers, bruising back, he blocks well. Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. As a Lions brass would say, yeah, this is a good problem to have, that you have two guys that are capable options in the backfield. But yeah, with Shivers, speed kills. That 68-yard reception just found another gear and took off. It was impressive to see. I know even calling back to our episode last week, we were saying in practice, he looked quick, and he definitely showed that it was only his first game since November. I actually asked him post game while he was waiting to do media. I was like, when was the last time you were playing a football game? And he said November, which is a substantial time. But yeah, he was excited to get back out there, and he really showed his potential. And yeah, like moving forward now, you have several options at running back that you can trust.
Yep, depth. So it's a word that's used quite a bit, and happy for Shaun too. You love that. It's a great thing about sports and this league in general. You see these guys, and someone asked him, I think it was Taryn with CIVL radio, asked him post game about what he knows about Vancouver, and he basically still said nothing. He's just been in the facility studying up, learning the offense, and maybe he'll get some time to enjoy the city as the Lions are on a bye until facing Saskatchewan. Watermelon Smash 1 week from Saturday. Stay tuned for the events that night. We'll hit that on the podcast next week, I'm sure. But Matthew Betts, ho-hum, 2 more sacks, 9 on the year, over halfway to achieving Brent Johnson's Canadian record for defensive linemen, or sack record in general, set in 2006. James Quick Parker, 26 and a half, back in the late 80s. I think that was the all-time single season record. Again, Nick, depth. People say, why would you cut loose a Sean Lemon? Why would you quickly move on from a Jonathan Kongbo after one supposed incident in here? Now you're seeing just how comfortable this coaching staff was with the players they already had in here. But Matthew Betts, this is going to be special to keep tracking.
Yeah, for sure. And it seems like Betts has obviously hit his full potential now. He was someone who was very highly touted back in his CIS days. I'm sure like every diehard CFL fan that's following the CIS, they would know about Matthew Betts because he was a top prospect coming out, and he's showing it now at this next level. And yeah, 9 sacks in the season. That get off speed is second to none in the CFL. He actually got one. He got caught with an offside yesterday, but it was close. It was close, and that's because Suter was talking about this on the broadcast yesterday. He's one of those guys where he's so quick off the edge that you think he has to be offside, but it's just that natural skill he has just with getting off, and something he uses to his advantage, and it's coming through full steam right now.
Yeah, he'd be at double digits if not for that.
Yeah.
Again, it's that close. That close. Yeah. And hey, he's a heck of an individual as well, is Matthew Betts. So 4-1. Bye week comes at a good time. Again, you see Jalen Edwards-Cooper leave on Sunday, rib injury. We're not quite sure how serious it was. Shouldn't be that bad, but and even Betts himself was taken off toward the end, just a bit of cramping, but no issues there. We'll see if Amani Rugamba is healed in time for the 22nd. And again, take Juan Mizell if he's healthy. They have a tough decision to make as far as the backfield goes. We do know is if Mr. Mizell does take an extra week or two, they're fairly comfortable in one Sean Shivers. So Lions and Rough Riders. We'll talk about this week's game. Saskatchewan again hosting Calgary. And want to address before we get to Bobby Dubeau, who's in Seattle for the home run derby. Talk about living the life. Ottawa Red Blacks making it official. Jeremiah Masoli is lost for the season. He did suffer a ruptured Achilles, his left leg. We certainly feared the worst watching him go off. Certainly in emotional times after all he did to get back. And we wish Jeremiah all the best going forward. Certainly tough to hear that today.
Yeah, I echo that, obviously, and just positive vibes overall. It's so heartbreaking to see after all the rehab and all the time it takes to come back, and to have that all wiped out in one game is pretty devastating. And yeah, it sucks to see, especially when you hear the character of Jeremiah Masoli too. He's such a well-liked individual and such a leader, and been in this league for, it seems like, what, a decade now, I believe. And it's very tough to hear the news, but wishing him all the positive thoughts and this next recovery, and hopefully he can come back even stronger and keep playing football in the future.
Yep. Wouldn't put it past him to make a full recovery once again, for sure. All the best to Jeremiah Masoli. Hope to see him again next season and beyond that. All right. A little bit of a different twist today, but it's awesome. You may have heard him on with Julio last night, Sunday in the halftime on AM 730, part of the broadcast. Bobby Dubeau, officially soon to be a Guinness World Record holder. 9 stadiums in 15 days, including a couple of big Lions games sandwiched in there. We'll talk to Bobby next. First and Now. And we've tracked the man down, soon to be official, knock on wood, Guinness Book of World Record holder, 9 CFL stadiums, 15 days. Bobby Dubeau with us now. And Bobby, let me get this straight. Your tour is continuing, sort of. You're in Seattle for the All-Star festivities, home run derby tonight. Do you ever sleep, my man?
I got a little bit of sleep last night, but it was weird. I would wake up and I didn't know where I was. I'm used to being in hotels and half asleep in my own bed for the first time in a long time, and I don't know where the hell I am. So
that's awesome. Very quickly before we talk about your CFL Odyssey, was Seattle and the All-Star festivities, was this always part of your schedule? What made you want to do that?
Well, I've never been to a home run derby. I kind of think that's kind of like a bucket list thing too. I really don't have much interest in the game tomorrow, but I was able to get some tickets, and I have an agenda here that I write everything in. And July 10th, the week was blank. Little did I know the week before it was packed. So I didn't realize it was like the next day after this record. But I also didn't think this record would have really taken off the way it has too. So I was going to be kind of sliding by quietly in the darkness.
Yeah, I was excited to see that the All-Star game was going back to Seattle, and it was going to be on our bye week, Lions bye week. But family duty calls. I'm heading the opposite way, heading up to the Okanagan. Not a bad place to be. So I'll be watching on television. Our pal JC Abbott at 3 Down Nation does a great job covering the CFL. And you talked to him for his article that he wrote. and he kind of gave a good background on your journey, and we'll get to it. We'll get you to talk about each venue here in just a couple of minutes. But what gave you the inspiration to try this and approach the Guinness Book of Records? Because as it said in that story, they reject 1,000 applications daily. Just talk about that process and what made you want to do it.
Well, like the schedule, it was kind of, I think this is like an anomaly in the schedule here where at the time I booked the trip, there was 3 Western games one weekend, 3 Eastern games the next. So I really only had to do this weird Hamilton trip this past weekend to make this work. So I don't know, growing up, you always like just want to, what do you want to be when you grow up? Being in the Guinness Book of World Records is a pretty good answer. So I thought maybe I'll submit this idea to them. It takes 12 weeks to hear back, but you basically need to pitch why it would be good. I said it's like kind of culturally significant to Canada, how unique every stadium is, that kind of thing. And the fact I could do it at the time I pitched it, it was 17 days. But once this thing gained momentum, I made a double stop back into Winnipeg to cut it down to 15. So basically just submit, and I would have done the trip anyway. But 12 weeks later, they said, we'll call you, don't call us. And exactly 12 weeks, they said, go for it. So just waiting, and now it's just a lot of evidence collection.
When it comes to the stadiums too, like you're obviously attended all 9. How did that go with like picking your seats, like picking, I guess the order comes naturally based on schedule, but like when it comes to where you want to sit, like in general, where do you like sitting for a football game?
I like to sit high up in the middle, kind of get that TV view. Sorry. Yeah, I like high up in the middle, not too low with the I don't know if the rich people are down there, but I like to get a view of the game. I like to see the plays develop, and in some stadiums, you get the better commentary up top as well.
Were you, I guess at the start too, were you attending these games by yourself? And then I'm guessing that once maybe the story started to gain traction, that's when maybe fans started approaching you live at these stadiums and adding to that experience that you had?
Yeah, I've family in a lot of these cities. So Winnipeg, I went with family. Calgary and Edmonton, my cousin lives in Calgary. She came up with me to Edmonton as well. But in terms of the record, like I need to have people that aren't affiliated with me at all as witnesses. So I was the first person approaching strangers at the stadium saying, hey, like, first off, are you going to be here till the end of the game? Because I need you to be here to say I was here the whole game. So random people, I was approaching them at first, and now I'm getting the random people coming up to me.
Yeah, that's what it was. It was like people taking selfies with you. Did it go that far, or like what was like the
It
experience
has
like?
got that far. I guess I'm like a D level celebrity in Canada for a few days here. So yeah, people recognize me. I got a big beard. Just wear the free sunglasses. So I think I'm kind of just like an everyman for like it's the CFL.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the merch items you were wearing too. It seemed like yesterday we saw you. You had a Hamilton Tiger Cats hat on. You had a BC Lions shirt, and then I think you had those Saskatchewan Rough Riders glasses, right? So were you collecting merch items along the way too?
Oh yeah, I got some whenever I go to NASCAR races a lot, so I always try and get like the free sunglasses. They give it a lot of merch there, but yeah, if somebody's gonna give me free sunglasses, or in case of Hamilton, they gave me the hat. Yeah, I'm gonna wear it for sure.
Yeah, Hamilton's a cool vibe. We've not been to Tim Hortons Field since 2019 due to the recent changes in the scheduling. Of course, Grey Cup this season, Grey Cup 110 in the Hammer. So hope to get there a couple times. But we're going to talk about perhaps each venue and what makes them each unique, because I know listening and reading some of your other interviews, you've definitely had a diverse experience. But just how special is the CFL community in terms of the fans, Bobby? How much of that was evident on this tour?
The fans have been pretty incredible, and like I knew it was kind of like a very friendly, welcoming community, but it's been it's been crazy, like above my wildest expectations with how friendly everybody's been. I don't think this kind of camaraderie exists in other sports. It's like, yeah, it's a professional league, but it's not a kind of corporate league. So yeah, everybody has been super welcoming. Every stadium has their own kind of flavor. Yeah, I don't know. I said to somebody, I would recommend this not just for Canadians, but for people from around the world. If you're going to come visit Canada, like go to a CFL game, spend an afternoon, and it's the type of Canadian culture that you won't get anywhere else in the country.
This you can actually trace this story for you, Bobby, back to last year. I read here. There was a hurricane that caused some travel issues that allowed you to visit Montreal and Ottawa for games on the last weekend. So Mother Nature certainly had an impact in getting this story going, didn't it?
Yeah, like it was like, again, it was like Hurricane Fiona. I traveled to Cape Breton a fair amount, so I know there's like it was complete devastation over there. But I was planning on being out there, and because of Fiona got there the day before, I was stuck in Montreal. So I planned on going to that Alouettes game anyway, and I didn't plan on staying much longer in Montreal. So I went and visited some family in Ottawa and said, "Hey, like, why don't we go? Why don't I do a back-to-back CFL game?" And went to the Red Blacks. So it was a lot of fun there. I couldn't believe, like, the Red Blacks, despite what the record, I think there's a little more optimism this year. But last year, I just couldn't believe how many fans were still going to these games. So, like, the diehard fans in the CFL are like no other. Like, they'll sit through and they'll let you know your team's not doing well, but they'll still be there to support you.
I read that you tabbed Saskatchewan as the best game day experience. Speaking from our perspective, it has been vastly improved the last couple of years. I mean, you've been going to games for a long time here in British Columbia. How impressed were you in terms of the game experience at BC Place compared to maybe 5-6 years ago?
Oh, it's not even close. Like, you wouldn't even know there was a game on 5 or 6 years ago when you're walking
Yeah.
around downtown. So, like, I know they're in a kind of difficult spot. Like, Saskatchewan's easy. The stadium's kind of in a wide open space. Downtown Vancouver, it's I'm sure Mr. Doman has spent a few dollars blocking off these streets for the fan experience. So it's incredible, the pregame that's out there now. But even the in-game, just the production in-game has it's been a huge difference. And I hate to be like Joey Alfieri and give you guys a bunch of credit for the video production. But yeah, that's a huge difference as well. It's not just it wasn't as bad as like the Coliseum, the clapping hands, but there wasn't really much going on at a Lions game until the last few years.
Before we were talking on air here too, and this is kind of circling back to the CFL community and how welcoming it is, but you had a good story about meeting a fan that ended up giving you a ride.
Yeah, so my biggest concern was this Hamilton game on Saturday. My friend lives in Toronto, and he's told me it's like Maple Ridge. It's no big deal. There's not. I guess he was kind of saying there's nothing in Hamilton, which there is. But it turns out it's like 2.5 hours on transit. But I met a guy in the airport at Winnipeg, like 5 in the morning, getting a flight to Toronto, and he recognized me from being on the TV the night before. He's actually from Vancouver. He's been to 29 Grey Cups. This year will be his 30th, and he had done kind of the same trip as me, just without the first two. He had a rental car, so he was more than happy to pick me up and drive me back after the game. Saved me probably 4 hours of travel and a lot of stress that I didn't need to worry about. So he was great to meet. Evan from Vancouver, he's a big Lions fan too. But I think Red Blacks were his team, which didn't go over too well in Hamilton that night.
That's awesome. Quickly before we let you go, I just want to say I'm gonna throw a stadium name and just give me like the first thought about like what makes this game day experience good. We'll start with TD Place
TD Place,
in Ottawa.
yeah, it's I was lucky I was on the newer side. But it's a great experience. It's right on the canal, right? It's a good atmosphere walking in. If I had a lot of money, I'd buy in that little apartment that had overlooks. But it was great. The Red Blacks were great to me too. They had me come on the field and presented me a jersey, and it's like Antoine Pruneau giving me a jersey. It's like, what? Why do you care about me? Like you're a hero to these Red Blacks fans. So Ottawa was one of the best experiences I had during the trip.
What about BMO?
BMO, I don't get it. It's a great stadium. It's a great location. You're right on the water, and I saw the attendance come out. It's like 12,000. It sounded like there was way more than 12,000 there. I don't get why more people don't go to that stadium or to see that team. Like they're one of the best teams in the league, and they Grey Cup champion. And I just don't get it. Everything's there for success, like in terms of drawing fans. And yeah, I got nothing bad to say about that stadium either.
And then also you obviously stopped in Alberta this past 10 days. So Alberta, like Commonwealth, we'll start with there. What was your experience seeing the Edmonton Elks play?
Commonwealth, well, seeing them play and visiting Commonwealth are two different things. But Commonwealth, I really enjoyed it. It's basically like BC Place without a roof, and the bathrooms aren't as nice in Edmonton. But it's a great atmosphere. Again, like the fans that was the only home losing streak that wasn't broken while I was at a game. So it's incredible that there's still that many people going to see a game of a team that hasn't won since before COVID. So yeah, Commonwealth was great. The food was great, and the team and the media were very good too. They kind of put me on the map. So I really enjoyed Commonwealth.
Then you went to McMahon too, right? Did you go to the Riders game at
Yeah, I
McMahon?
went to the Riders game, so it was a lot more people there than usual. I was lucky enough to have a seat with a back on it in McMahon. But about halftime, all the Riders fans come down from the top because they're scouting out these nicer seats because they're all sitting on benches in the top level there. So it was a great game. It was a pretty wild finish. And McMahon gets a bad rap, I know, but yeah, it's an older stadium. There's still a lot to like. It's a good atmosphere, and they got the world's fastest cow, which I think was the best in-game entertainment out of all the stadiums I went to.
Did the cow win?
Like apparently the cow runs an 11-second 100 meters. So yeah, the cow destroyed the two guys. So
Yeah, I think they do at the start of the second quarter. I always tune into that one too when we're there. Montreal, I believe you went to the Canada Day game, right? Where unfortunately the weather was not so nice.
He's still drying out, I think.
yeah, that was crazy. Like I usually get to the stadiums an hour early because I don't want to risk anything. But get to the stadium, and as soon as I walk in, everybody's crammed in underneath the stands. It's not the best stadium. It's kind of like being crammed underneath the stands at Swangard. There's no real communication. You're looking at a screen. It was kind of like reminding me of Squid Game. Everybody's just staring at a screen that says game coming back on at 8 o'clock, and then it's 8:40. And if that went anything past 10 o'clock, that game would have been canceled and the record would have been gone too. So that was the only time I was really sweating at all during this whole trip. Sure, there's travel issues, but I didn't think there'd be an issue of a game getting scrapped altogether. So luckily they got the game in, and they got it in to the halfway point of the third quarter before the second weather system came in too. So I know all about the CFL weather rules now.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a thing you can't really take into consideration beforehand, right? But Matt, is there any other stadiums we haven't talked about yet?
Did we talk about IG Field?
IG Field, yeah, I went there twice. The second game was, I think, more of the authentic IG Field experience where the Bombers actually won because the Lions slaughtered them the first game. It got pretty quiet. Everybody's leaving. So the second game was a lot better. I was sitting up a lot higher up. That yard dog, it's not a yard. It's not even 32 inches like they said. I think it's like maybe 2.5 feet. But it's got some good pierogies on top of it, at least.
Yeah, I want to try one of those when we're back there in August. What was your favorite food on this Odyssey, Bobby?
I really like the green and gold dog in Edmonton. I've been told that usually the mac and cheese on it is cold. I was lucky enough to get some warm mac and cheese on mine, so that made it good. And there were these, I think they were churro donuts in Calgary, which I I only had a couple, thankfully. So, but they were really good as well. Those were probably the top two of the trip.
We'll have to sample a green and gold dog. That the mac and cheese. Yeah, I'm just taste buds there. We'll start our health kick after Labor Day. How's that? Listen, Bobby, this was outstanding. I'm glad we were able to touch base. Thank you for making time, and enjoy the All-Star festivities. That's still a bucket list item for me. Nick and I saw some postseason baseball last year, the Blue Jays Mariners wild card game in Toronto, but the All-Star game is looks like a lot of fun as well. So enjoy it, my friend, and let's stay in touch. We'll see you at a game here soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on. It's an honor to be on here.
Yeah, thank you, Bobby, and congrats again on the record, and we'll see you around BC Place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent stuff with Bobby Dubeau, fella Delta. We're getting more Delta guys on here.
Yeah,
Nick.
It's a theme now, hey?
It's a theme, yes. Love it.
Who we getting at next week?
Let's give Mitch Berger a call.
There we go.
Mitch living the dad life down in Phoenix, Arizona. I got to know him a bit on the Super Bowl junkets with Moj back in the day.
Yeah,
there's some stories to be told, not on this podcast, but
Moj had him on this year. A great interview.
Yeah, he of course lives in Arizona, so would have been easily able to get there. But Mitch is a solid guy, and I saw him. He was in a Mar Doman suite at one point last season, I believe. So always welcome at BC Place. But I'm itching to try some of this food now. That green and gold dog with the mac and cheese. Yeah, let's go. Of course, I chickened out last year in Montreal. I did not get the poutine helmet. Might have to switch that this year and try it. But we should do a video with that or something.
Well, even in Winnipeg, right? When you walk into the stadium and the road entrance, they have a barbecue going with these hot dogs. There's actually one of our guys was saying, do not eat those hot dogs. You don't know what they're putting in them when the road team comes in. So having some fun with it, but it was funny to see that.
Yeah. Stadium food, a big part of any lengthy CFL road trip, just like ballpark food. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we talked about it. Successful night at all overall Sunday, and you had a funny story to tell. You did something funny. What'd you do?
Yeah, I was battling some conditions yesterday too, and it was I don't know where the blame should fall on this, but pregame, the access that we were privileged to get, I'm able to go in the locker room, and usually what my role is there is just to capture Coach Rick's speech and then when the guys come out, I follow them out, and then that's it. And then the game starts, right? But so I go in the room, and in the BC Place locker room, we have there's kind of a gap in between lockers, and it's right at the DB section. So Gary Peters is on one side of the gap, and I think it was Adrian Green's on the other gap. But there's a little bit of a gap. It's this little like brick pillar that's in the middle. And that's usually where I stand because there's no locker room or no locker behind me. So there's a little space naturally for me, right? So I'm waiting for Coach Rick to come in and give his pregame speech, and I lean back on the pillar, and then I start feeling this. My back gets all wet, and I'm thinking to myself, is this really wet? So I go back and I touch my back, and it's drenched, and then I start smelling some hand sanitizer, and be it. There's a hand sanitizer bottle along this wall piece that's in the gap there. And I guess by leaning back onto it, I triggered. It was like the sensor that comes out that for the hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
So unbeknowingly, I had it triggered probably for a good 10 seconds. So thankfully, I was wearing a black shirt because my back was drenched. And it's a strong scent too, right? The hand sanitizer. So I had to deal with that, and I think it went away by the first quarter when I was in the sun. But I was drenched in hand sanitizer, which is just a very funny pregame story that I had to deal with.
Well, it was a pretty hot night. You could have just gotten away with telling people that I'm just sweating. I'm running around.
A circle on my back, yeah. And I could smell it for the first probably quarter of the game.
That's the type of thing you're lucky it happens at home. If you do that on a road trip, well, you have a change of clothes you can change into for the flight. But
Yeah, and we wear black shirts, so
um,
thankfully.
so beware of the gap in the locker room. It's hazardous. Moral of the
Yep.
story.
You'll be clean though.
I love it. As mentioned, first of 3 bye weeks. Lions back to work. I'll be back to practice 1 week from Monday. We're recording this on Monday, starting bye week. Week 6 in the CFL. Again, we got, well, no, it's different. We got Thursday, Friday, and then first doubleheader of the year, I think, Saturday, 2 games. But we'll go in order. Edmonton 0-5, Hamilton 1-3, the venue, Commonwealth. We've asked this question 100 times. Well, 18 or 19 times on this podcast. Can the Elks win at Commonwealth, Nick?
Can they? Yes. Do I think they will? I'm sorry, but no. I like
so what you're
Matthew...
saying, so what you're saying is the pressure is going to be on our team to keep the winless streak going because we'd be the next opponent there on July 29th.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I liked what I saw with Matthew Schultz last week, and I thought Hamilton made some good plays last week. Their defense looked pretty alive. They're forcing turnovers. So unfortunately, unless Edmonton can air it out on Hamilton's secondary, which I think is maybe their path to winning this one, I'm not sure they can get it done. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Matthew Schultz, it's been a couple of weeks now where there's no questions about Bo Levi Mitchell's health. We know Matthew's going to be the guy for probably a couple more weeks, right? And that was kind of a funny game they had with Ottawa. Not much offense to go around on either side, but Hamilton still has a veteran-laden roster on both sides of the ball. They do seem to be getting a bit healthier. They got to get James Butler going. We know what James. Yeah, we know what James Butler's been capable of. But if they get out to a lead and they want to ground and pound and run the clock, have to get a bit more out of Butler, I think. But it hasn't mattered because they won last week, right? So, yeah, I'm with you. I can't see the Elks coming out of it. Who knows the residual effect of the CJ Sims gaffe there in Regina? So you have to wonder if there's more doubt starting to creep in, but who knows? But I'm with you. I wouldn't be gambling any hard-earned cash on the Edmonton Elks, especially at home. So that's Thursday. We of course don't gamble on the CFL, but I'm just saying if I did.
For the record,
game of the week probably Friday. 3-0 Toronto. They're coming off their second bye already, the Argos. Shades of our schedule last year. Montreal loses a 2 straight now, of course. Toronto in Montreal Friday, 4:30 start Pacific time. That Argos defense, they make Cody Fajardo the least bit uncomfortable early. This one maybe could get out of reach for Montreal early, but I don't want to say must win. But if you're an Alouettes team who has any hope of making this a race for first place all season long, you kind of have to get this one, Nick.
Yeah, adversity is probably the key word with this one when it comes to Montreal. And the factor, too, that they were on the West Coast here yesterday, Sunday afternoon, and had to fly back all the way to Montreal on Monday. And now they play on Friday. So that's a quick turnaround. But we went to Winnipeg from a Saturday to Thursday turnaround on one full practice and went in there and won, obviously. And then even last week with the Argos and playing us, I know the Argos had to practice at different locations with the air quality out there. So, yeah, like it's going to be a tough situation for Montreal, but I want to see how they respond to it. And we'll see what Toronto's like off a bye too, which is probably a scary sight.
Yeah, Chad Kelly again. He had a lot of help from his defense, and he's got an elite running back and AJ Ouellette, physical football team. That was evident when we were at BMO there last week. So,
oh yeah,
I'm gonna look forward to watching that. That'll be my last night in Penticton, but might have to get the TV on before going out for dinner on Friday. Argos, Alouettes. Saturday, again, doubleheader, 1:00 Pacific time. How about this? 4-1 Winnipeg at 1-3 Ottawa. We talked about the unfortunate Mazzoli news earlier. So Ottawa's quarterback situation initially here, not sure they can overcome this against the Blue Bombers. I expect Winnipeg to be 6-1 when we go back there on August 3rd. They'll be in Ottawa here. They'll host Edmonton. Then they'll have a bye, and we're coming off a short week. Again, there's that scheduling, but have to overcome it. Yeah, we'll see. Been wrong before, but I think Winnipeg is the safe assumption here. What do you feel?
Yeah, that's a tough get for Ottawa, especially with coming off another quarterback change, obviously, and playing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is no easy task. But on the positive side, I thought Dustin Crum looked pretty capable. He looked competent with the offense last week, and that's obviously a tough situation for him. He's newer to the team, having to come in unexpectedly. Uses his legs really well. Obviously, it goes back to the last play with Ottawa and Hamilton where he came up 2 yards short, but also had a nice touchdown run. So maybe there's always that element too, where football is such a game of scouting and scheming and all that, when you don't know who you're scheming or scouting for and a new quarterback, right? Like maybe that can serve as an advantage. I'm sure that's a message Ottawa's handing out in their locker room right now, that, we're going to throw something new at them and we'll see how it works. And that's kind of the beauty of football, right? You don't know exactly what's going to happen on any given game.
All right, the nightcap, Saturday, 4:00 Pacific time, 3-1 Saskatchewan hosting 1-3 Calgary. The Elks, recent home struggles, well documented. The Red Blacks, they got their home win against Edmonton, but well documented. Saskatchewan over Edmonton last week, Nick, you forget. That was their first home win in pretty much a calendar year almost, right?
Crazy. Yeah, crazy.
They I think lost their last 7 home games last year, including 2 to your BC Lions in the summertime, once in July, once in August. So the Stampeders, I thought they could have been in for something good in Winnipeg last week, but a couple of big mistakes, missed field goal return. You know how opportunistic the Bombers are. I was talking a bit about, almost a crucial time to win territory for Montreal. What about Calgary, Nick? They don't want to fall behind in this top 3 West race. This is a big one for the Stampeders.
This game is super important for both teams, I find, because if Saskatchewan drops to 3-2, then they're back, right in the mix with Calgary. But if they go to 4-1, then suddenly they're playing us for a battle of 4-1 teams, and we're talking the top of the West.
And don't forget, Saskatchewan would lock up the season series with a win, because they did win in Calgary a few weeks ago. Our guy, Bobby Dubeau, was at that game, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So if you're Saskatchewan and you get this win, you're essentially 8 points up when you factor in the tiebreaker. That's a big swing. So
huge. And the Riders have been executing too, right? Like they made that play in overtime. Nick Marshall ending that game. They've been in close games. The week 1 goal line stoppage that gave them the win. So, I mean, they've been in close games, but they've been coming out on top.
Yeah, and then of course the craziness against Edmonton. So
yeah,
there's your week 6 menu. Look forward to watching and tuning into these games. And I'm off to Penticton, a little family trip, a little wine tour, a little lake time. Gonna unwind, unplug for a few days, and be back next week.
Yeah, that's some much earned time off for you, hey?
Yeah, for all of us. I know you're heading up to Kamloops. You're going back to training camp.
Yeah, I have been there 2 months. I missed it too much.
Just can't keep you away from the chicken souvlaki and the burritos. Okay. Yeah. Well, shout out to our pals, Tours in Kamloops, a podcast partner of ours for a time, and look forward to seeing what you capture. All right, First and Now, the official Lions podcast. Subscribe, rate, leave a review. We've had some excellent guests lately, from Kate Burness to Katie Hamilton, Sarah Said, Joey Alfieri, our guy, one of our new best buddies on the CFL circuit, talking Alouettes, and Bobby Dubeau. Not every day you get to talk to someone who's going to be in the Guinness Book of Records. So I'm at Bakes Takes 84. He is at Nick_Kowalski on Twitter. And we'll talk to you next week on First and Now.